also have his meetup in Ho Chi Minh City. It's a beautiful city there. And this topic we are going to talk about is about DeFi. And what can DeFi can bring us, and what's the difference between the traditional financial and what can bring innovations to the traditional finance. We can see here, we talk about liquidity, and we talk about what's the best blockchain platform for DeFi. We can get some answer there. So hope you have a good night there, and we invite our MC host, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Good evening, everyone. Great to have you all here. My name is Paul Holland. I'm the CMO at Mosendo, based here in Ho Chi Minh City, and Jack was kind enough to ask me to MC the evening. So we're going to have a great evening talking about DeFi. It's one of my favourite things to study and learn and talk about right now. I've worked in the banking system a long time ago, and a lot of the challenges I faced working in the system all those years ago haven't changed. And DeFi is creating the opportunity for so many great new products, new lending protocols, new saving and interest-bearing protocols, just new ways of doing things, which are really great. Just a couple of logistical things. If anyone needs a bathroom, there are some just outside. We're going to have three great speakers tonight from Nervos, Kyber and Mosendo. And then we'll have a short break over some refreshments, and then we're going to have a panel discussion with the guys about all things DeFi. We also have an interpreter here, so if there's anyone who is not good with English and needs Vietnamese, we do have an interpreter over here in the corner. And if you wanted to move over there, she will translate live as we go. So if anyone needs translation, please just head yourself over to this corner here. Now, just before we kick off with the DeFi, we are in a great space here provided by Kafnu. So I just want to invite Clemens to come and say a few words about our venue.
Hi everybody, welcome to Kafnu. We are indeed very excited to be hosting the Nervos meetup tonight. So thank you for giving us the chance to talk a little bit about Kafnu, the company, and what we're doing all over Asia. So we actually have 5 different locations around Asia. We started with Hong Kong, and then Taipei, Sydney, Bangalore, and Ho Chi Minh City is the latest of the Kafnus. So Kafnu is actually a blend of co-working with a hospitality approach. So given the example here of Ho Chi Minh City, we've got some event space, as you can see, meeting rooms, private offices, hot desks, dedicated desks, but also a restaurant, a bar, a gym, and some hotel rooms. So we really want to give the variety of spaces to our different members, and so that everybody can actually find a space that can fit and get the best of creation to help them develop their businesses. So we've got Joan here, our events manager. If you need any more information about the space, we'll be happy to show you the space around. And I'll be around as well. So we wish you a very successful event tonight, and good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. All right, well, let's get underway. So our first speaker this evening is Loi Lu. Loi studied at the National University of Singapore and got his PhD studying cryptocurrencies and other financial protocols. He's the CEO and co-founder of Kyber, which is an on-chain liquidity protocol that powers all sorts of great cryptocurrency products, DEXs and things like that. So please welcome Loi.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be back to Ho Chi Minh. It's been a while since my last time here. So today I'm going to talk about Kyber and the recent update, how we have been working with other projects in the space, especially in the decentralized finance. Yeah, but before I start, I think how many of you here have heard of decentralized finance before? Okay, quite a bit. So we have like more than 50% of the people here. Have you ever seen a formal definition of DeFi? So what is DeFi? It's just decentralized finance, right? But what exactly? Okay, this one doesn't work. What exactly does that mean, right? So I also tried to Google it like a couple of days ago, but I couldn't find any like formal definition or anything on the internet. So this is my first attempt to try to formalize it, like, what are the properties that decentralized finance try to achieve, right? The first one is permissionless, or, openness. So what that means is, anyone from anywhere in the world, right, they can also try to, they can also like use all the financial services, and all they need to do is, just probably like an internal account and, a good internet connection, and that's it. So they can subscribe to whatever financial services that they want to use. This is a bit, like very different from the traditional finance world. And if you want to open the bank account, you have to, go to the bank counter and, go through the KYC and many things, right? And what's worse is that, even if you have a bank account there, and when you receive some certain amount of money, they will ask you a lot of questions. Probably in Vietnam they don't ask that much, but like in Singapore, I have been asking so many questions because of money in and out in my bank account, and I just like, super tired of that, right? And the second important property is that transparent. What that means is that everything needs to be clearly verifiable and publicly available on the blockchain, so that later on anyone at any time they can verify it, they can check what's going on, right? In traditional finance, what happens is that you don't know what exactly happened behind the desk, right? Like what the bank do with your money, you don't know, right? How they manage your asset, you also have no clue. Everything's like black box. But with DeFi, you can clearly see everything on the blockchain. You can see, if you are able to integrate the code and things like that, you see like what they do with your Ether, with your DAI, and with your asset. And the last but not least, which is trustless. What that means is that you don't need to depend on anyone to protect or to secure your asset or to use any financial service, right? If you collateralize your asset to get some interest, you should be guaranteed that you don't have to be dependent on any person, on any third party to safeguard your asset, right? So your principal is always guaranteed, and you are always guaranteed to get back your money. This is not the case in traditional finance. We have seen a lot of cases in which banks they go bankrupt, and basically your money is just gone, right? Anything that I missed? Any other property that you want to add? Okay, seems like I have done a good job. Yes, and all of this have to be powered by a public blockchain, right? So this is the sort of like all the DeFi applications and projects currently in the ecosystem. So we can see that there are several categories depending on the use cases. So we have prediction markets, we have loans, derivatives, and recently there's insurance applications that are getting some traction as well. And of course, like decentralized exchanges and liquidity protocols have always been a very hot topic. And Kyber is one of these applications. Oh, I don't see Mosendo here.
It's an oversight on your slide.
Okay, so in finance, right, liquidity is always the most important component. It's like the blood in our human body, right? And so basically, liquidity, or in Vietnamese, Thạnh, right? It represents the degree in which you can sell or buy some asset quickly without affecting the market, right? And it's so important that if you remember in the 08 or 07, what causes the crisis is that people cannot sell or buy their asset easily, right? Like if someone sells some stock of some foreign company, it will crash the entire market, right? And eventually the government have to jump in. And when it comes to liquidity, there are always two different players. The liquidity providers or the market makers, right?
the one who actually create the market and allow other people to buy and sell easily. And the other guys are liquidity takers. So this is like retail traders, other people who buy and sell a lot of assets, right? So what is decentralized liquidity then? So this is basically the liquidity available in the decentralized market, it inherits like important properties from decentralized finance, right? Like first of all, it has to be trustless relationship between the liquidity providers and the liquidity takers. So what that means is, if we both do a transaction, right, like none of the party is vulnerable to someone just run away with the asset, and you can always be sure that you will get what you expect to get, right? And every properties, every parameters, including the inventory, the rates, have to be transparent and publicly verifiable on the blockchain. And the most important aspect is that decentralized liquidity will have to be utilizable by all the decentralized finance applications, right? So technically, it must be accessible by smart contract, like public smart contract on Ethereum, for example. So why do we need like decentralized liquidity, right? Can we use some liquidity from Binance or from GitTrade for all the DeFi application? So the main issues is that all the centralized liquidity is neither secure or transparent, right? Like we have heard a lot of story about hacking and how all the centralized exchanges they poorly manage your asset, right? And some founder and CEO just die and then he just brought all your asset away with him. And there's also fraud and manipulation in the platform as well, which is against all the properties that we want to achieve in decentralized finance. And most importantly, it's not technically compatible with decentralized applications, right? Like just imagine, everything on Binance and other centralized exchanges, they are run on some servers, right? And now your decentralized application are running on some smart contract, and it's technically very hard, almost impossible for them to talk natively, right? You probably have to build some bridge or some technique to connect between them, but now you have some problem with trusting the bridge itself, which again compromisable, right? Is it clear here or any question? Okay. So currently on Ethereum we have a few major players that actually provide the liquidity for the entire ecosystem. So we have people like Uniswap, Kyber, we also have Rossco and Oasis. Millenport is sort of like both providing liquidity and also taking liquidity, right? And we also have like Dash, which is from Oasis. But one problem is that all these players are working in silo. That means they're not working together, right? And then it's very hard for one application to utilize the liquidity from all these platforms. So for example, if I want to create a landing app, I may have to integrate with 6 or 7 different players, and it's going to take a lot of time for me, right? For example, to find the best rate, I have to work with 7 different platforms, and sometimes I might not, have enough time to integrate with all of them, so I might not be able to find enough liquidity for my application. Realize the challenge. Kyber, we created what we call an on-chain liquidity protocol, and the whole mission is to connect all the different liquidity providers, right, and make it available in one single interface for all the different liquidity takers to utilize it, right? So on one side we have we can connect the different players like Uniswap, Dash, Banco and Kyber Reserve and many other players. And on the other side, you can have all the DeFi applications like Nervos, even Kyber Swap, Miu, and many other applications to utilize it. And all they need to do is just to query to one single smart contract here, which is the Kyber smart contract, and they can find the best rate available among the entire ecosystem. Right? So what are the important properties that we achieve in Kyber, right? Apart from aggregating all the liquidity available in the ecosystem. So what differentiates from Kyber from other similar players is that we have flexible liquidity models. So that means if some market makers want to contribute liquidity, they have different ways to do it, right? They don't have to follow any certain rule or model that is dictated by Kyber, but they can just use whatever formula or model or mechanism that they are comfortable with. For example, in Uniswap, they have the automated market making model, right? So basically, the rate is controlled by some formula. And on Nervos Dash, they have the Dash auction model. And if users, if they want to contribute liquidity to Dash, they have to follow that particular model. With Kyber, we can allow all of them to work together and we can connect with all of them so that we can improve the liquidity available in Kyber. And everything is fully on-chain. That means everything is run on the smart contract. Everything is publicly available. And the most important thing is that it is very composable for any integration. Right? If you run your DeFi app on your Intl smart contract, you can just integrate with Kyber by calling one or two smart contract functions, and that's it. So it's just like people have been saying on the internet, it's just like financial Lego, right? You have a different pieces and you can just plug them together and it just works. So this is the sort of network numbers so far that we have. The total value locked in is about 7 million-ish, but probably it's a little bit more now. But this is the old number. In terms of liquidity providers, we have 31 different market makers available on Kyber, including people like Uniswap and Nervos CMC. They're also the market makers on Kyber as well. We have integrated with more than 70 different wallets and dApps, including all the decentralized finance applications. And I'm not sure if Mosendo have integrated with us. Have you?
No.
Okay,
soon.
we need to talk. Soon. Right. And these are all the different players that have integrated with Kyber so far. In terms of decentralized finance, we have people like Nervos, and Nervos is like lending platform, right? They allow you to lend and borrow asset easily. BCI is like margin trading, right? Like you can actually do margin trading in a decentralized manner without trusting anyone. And we have a lot of different wallets. I think all the major wallets in this space have been integrated with Kyber. So you can see that Miu, Untitled wallet, I have token, and Shin, the one that integrated with Samsung Galaxy S10. Recently, we got STC Exodus phone as well. If you have it, you can see that in the wallet, Kyber is there, so you can convert and trade the tokens in a decentralized manner. Okay, so how exactly that other people are working with Kyber? So let's take an example, which is SET. So SET allows the users to manage their asset in a different way, right? And one simple strategy that is just allow the user to buy and hold a basket of asset. So if you have Bitcoin here, you say you don't want to be too exposed, right? You want to convert your Bitcoin into Bitcoin and DAI, and you manage 50% of your inventory in each of the asset. So SET allows you you to do that in one single transaction. Like you send Bitcoin to the smart contract and send it to called Kyber, and we will just split that 50% of Bitcoin into DAI in a trustless manner, right? Like you can just call the smart contract, and the smart contract just do that for you. And everything happens on the smart contract, so you don't have to trust either SAT or Kyber to manage the asset for you. Any question here? They also have like different strategy, like trend trading. Like this is why it's not performing assets in the week or the day or things like that. But all of these are powered by Kyber at the moment. Another example is Nervos. So Nervos is getting a lot of traction by allowing the users to borrow and lend the asset. So the idea is that if you want to have some DAI to pay for your rent or pay for your employee salary, and you don't want to sell your Ether, right? So the way you can do it, so how you can do it is you can just collateralize your Ether, and you can get back some DAI, and you can just pay that, use that DAI to pay for your need, right? And Nervos use Kyber in a situation where the margin call happens, right? What that means is that if the price of Ether falls below some certain threshold, they have to liquidate the Ether. And currently they are doing it on Kyber, so they will just sell more Ether on Kyber to get back the DAI to return it to the lender, right? This is the SDC blockchain token. I think they integrated this first in May. It's been a few months. So I hope I have convinced everyone that decentralized finance is interesting, and decentralized liquidity is super important in enabling that, right? And Kyber is working really hard in connecting all the on-chain liquidity sources, making it easier for any decentralized finance application to use and utilize. But still, there are a lot of work to be done in improving the space. For example, the cross-chain space, right? Recently, there's a new initiative called TBC, and previously we also launched WBTC with a few other projects. I think they are all good starting points, but we need to improve the starting point to attract more players into the space. With that, thanks everyone. I'm going to be around. Last slide. We are hiring. Anywhere in Vietnam. If you are interested in any of the positions, just talk to us or just go to this website, Kyber.vn.
Another round of applause for Loi. It's great to see that. One of my favourite parts about that sort of description of DeFi was about the trustless part, not needing the trusted third parties. This week, a friend of ours sent my wife $1,000 in PayPal, and guess what? It got frozen. Yeah. Apparently, PayPal said we need to verify the money was meant for you. It's like, well, it was sent to her account. So, yeah. So our own money's been locked up for 5 or 6 days, and you just can't do anything about it. So yeah, the trustless part is one of my favourite parts of DeFi. So now we're going to hear from Ben Waters. Ben's had an incredible career working in the marketing space across blockchain and cryptocurrency. He's worked in e-commerce. He was previously managing director of a digital marketing agency with offices across Asia with clients like Google and Nestle and L'Oreal. So kind of a big deal having clients like that. He's now a CMO at Nervos, which is a blockchain ecosystem aiming to solve all the problems that the blockchain suffer. So please welcome Ben.
Okay. Just sing a song, something. Yeah, I'm really good singer. Hi everyone, thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks Lloyd for the talk. Very interesting. Actually, I think it covers
better than a few of my first slides, so I'll probably skip through them. And also this presentation, the first time I'm talking through it, so I'm not sure of the timing, and I need to skip through some stuff. So interestingly, actually, I was also first when I left university, I went into finance. So I was trading on the London Stock Exchange for 3 years, starting in 2007. So I traded all through the financial crash. So I have pretty good insight into general finance and that whole space. And I've seen it from the inside. And part of the reason why I was so excited this year when I learned about blockchain cryptocurrency is because of my experience, in finance, working in London in that kind of area, and seeing that system and how we could kind of create something different, right? So that was a big motivation for me to join in this space as well. Okay, so I think that's most things loaded up. So in this presentation, I'm just going to talk very quickly about why decentralized finance, and then I'm just going to talk a little bit about what are the platform requirements to essentially facilitate decentralized finance. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges we're seeing on current platforms, focusing on these 3 kind of topics: heavy assets, state load, and starting layer 1. So if you guys have heard those kind of things before, then you'll know generally what I'm going to be talking about. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about CKB and how we're addressing those challenges and trying to solve them as well. So anyone that hasn't heard of Nervos before, we're building a blockchain ecosystem. We're starting with a layer 1 proof of work network called the CKB, the Common Knowledge Base. So our team is based mainly in China, and our engineering team are the guys behind IO Token. So they created IO Token and also Sparkpool, the largest Ethereum mining pool in the world. And we're also building Huobi's finance chain. So if you follow those, you've heard that was the last one. Yeah, do you want to put it full screen? Okay, so why DeFi? I'm very happy you brought up what is DeFi, right? Because I do think that it's quite a broad definition. Actually, if you ask me what DeFi was, to be honest, I would tell you it's kind of crypto, right, and blockchain. Because decentralized finance is finance decentralized. I would say it's pretty broad, but I think a lot of people tend to look at it through what are like the end user applications that people can use, right? So if we're talking about liquidity lending services, these types of things. Generally what people tend to define as DeFi. And why DeFi? Why do we need it, right? So very simply, existing legacy financial systems suck, right? They're pretty bad. Really, they're only accessible for the rich, and they serve their services for those people very well. And people who are at the bottom of the ladder, maybe even unbanked, they don't really get to accessing any services, right? So it's very much the general principle of why blockchain is so important, because we live in a society where essentially the rich get richer and the poor tend to suffer. And I think a lot of people would agree that a big part of what blockchain is supposed to do is about leveling the playing field, right, and making it equal for everyone. So also, we live in a global digital first world now, okay? And a lot of the financial system, was created decades ago, and it's based on, legacy systems and very old, outdated principles and all these types of things. So really, now we live in a digital world. We deserve to have, digital finance and decentralized currencies. What I say here basically is that up until Satoshi's innovation of Bitcoin and the blockchain, the double spend was the ecclesial of digital currency transactions. So it wasn't really until Satoshi released the Bitcoin white paper that we actually had a solution to this challenge of how do we send currency transactions online without having to worry about the double spend problem, right? So that's what Satoshi ultimately solved, and from that, it's basically created this whole industry and
money, or in other words, decentralized finance. Okay, and here's some examples. There are better examples in your presentation, but there's just a few that I put at the bottom which I think are kind of interesting, like would you classify them as DeFi or not? Stable coins, is Tether DeFi? Well, it's a centralized coin, right? So I think that's available. Sidechains. So personally, I'm very excited about Bitcoin's liquid sidechain, and I think that really hits what decentralized finance is. And mini scripts. If anyone saw Peter Wall's release a few days ago about mini scripts for Bitcoin, that's also super exciting stuff. So you're going to be able to do a lot of stuff around multi-sig and application programming with mini scripts. Okay, so what are the platform requirements for DeFi? What is the kind of base layer that you want to have to be able to build these types of applications on? So any blockchain really needs to be permissionless and borderless. Any open public blockchain needs to be permission and borderless. It needs to be censorship resistant. It needs to be immutable and transparent. So I think everyone kind of agrees with that. And these properties are basically achieved through the decentralization of the network itself. Then, of course, specifically for a blockchain network to be suitable for user-facing DeFi applications, it also should be quite flexible and customizable. Okay, it should be usable, so it should be very easy for developers to build on, and it should be scalable as well. And so these properties are achieved mainly through the protocol and technology stuff. And then finally, the platform itself has to be sustainable. Okay, it needs to be sustainably secure. Okay, it also needs to be sustainably decentralized. It needs to align interests of all actors, and that's really how you will create a sustainable ecosystem. It also needs to provide an engine of growth and value generation, as well as providing some way to capture value on the network itself as well. And these are largely achieved through the economic design of the platform. And lots of things can be currently decentralized, but in the long term, are they built to be decentralized for the long term and the security for the long term? And we'll see that that's maybe debatable on a few platforms. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the challenges that blockchain platforms and platforms specifically for DeFi they face, focusing mostly on the sustainability aspect of it. Okay, so the most popular bloggers today are facing several sustainability challenges today. Some of these points might be quite controversial, and people may agree or disagree, but I think it's important just to talk about it so people are aware. There's three kind of key challenges that we see at Nervos regarding sustainability of current blockchain solutions. And those three are heavy assets and security, state float and decentralization, and starving the layer one miner incentivization. So I'm just going to talk through these from a very top level perspective first, just to give you guys a bit of an overview. So heavy assets and security. Okay, so most of you guys have probably seen something like this, right? It shows you what is the cost to essentially have a 51% attack on some of the biggest blockchain networks we have today. And we can see, of course, it's quite asymmetric how it's distributed, with Bitcoin, of course, being extremely expensive to attack. With some of these little guys like Bitcoin SV, which has a $2.5 billion market cap, only costing $10,000 to attack that network. So, when you attack a network, to have a 51% attack, it basically allows you to double spend, right? So you have some potential where you can send a large transaction and try and double spend it, which is really the main thing you would try and do if you're trying to exploit your networks. And then the important point that I have at the bottom here is really a multi-asset blockchain, right? So the only multi-asset blockchain really up here is Ethereum that has lots of different tokens issued on that network. Of course, if you took the market cap of all of those tokens together, that would be extremely large, right? And if you look at the relative cost of attacking that network, then it's pretty low, okay? So actually, I don't know what that exact number is, but I'm sure the market cap is very high. If you put all the system on it as well. Okay, so a single asset platform like Bitcoin, it does a pretty good job in ensuring security of its networks, right? And really, that's because you have this nice flow of how the miners are incentivized to secure that network, right? As demand for Bitcoin increases, the price of Bitcoin increases, right? That in turn increases the miner reward because the miners are paid a fixed amount of Bitcoin. And as that reward increases, the miners are more incentivized to mine those Bitcoin. And you have this nice flow where the network should essentially scale in terms of secure, sustainably secure the effect on the miners as whatever the price really happens on a Bitcoin. Okay, so this leads us to the heavy asset problem. Okay, which is kind of what I hinted at in the previous slides, where if you have a lot of non-native assets, so if you take Ethereum as an example, which would be all the ERC20 tokens on Ethereum, okay, you actually have a bit of a challenge here because if you launch an ERC20 token on Ethereum and it scales to $1 billion market cap, the network itself has no higher security than it did before you launched that token. So actually, the network is much more valuable in terms of the total assets stored on it, but the security of the network hasn't increased at all. Okay, so it actually creates a little bit of a problem. It creates a bit of a honeypot on Ethereum, especially if the Ethereum token isn't scaling with the tokens that are launched on it, which it doesn't. Right? There's no direct link between the price of the Ethereum token and the price of assets that are launched on Ethereum. Okay. So that's really the crux of what the heavy asset problem is, which is obviously a challenge with multi-asset platforms. Okay, so really what I say here is that if you want to have a sustainably secure multi-asset platform, your native token, the native tokens that's used to incentivize the security, i.e. pay the miners, it needs to be able to capture the ecosystem value. And that's really how you're going to make sure that the security of your network is sustainable. Okay? And that's the question I posed here. Okay? So if we go back to the graph that we just saw, really we want to make sure that we're increasing the miner reward to increase the security of the network. And really what we need to do is we need to make sure that the demand, as demand to store assets on the platform increases, then that's got to increase the native token itself. And we'll talk a little bit about this towards the end, but the mechanism on Nervos network is exactly that. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is state float and decentralization. This is a fairly hot topic if you follow Ethereum and the development of Ethereum, because they're talking about this quite a lot at the moment. Okay, so this really comes back to sustainability of decentralization, right? So we talked a little bit about security. This is about decentralization, okay? So most of you guys are probably quite aware that decentralization is basically, having a lot of nodes on the network, so there's no kind of centralized point of that network. And really, a lot of the decentralization issue comes down to how easy is it to run a node. So I'm sure everyone's aware of the Bitcoin forks into Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. And if you know about why that happened, it was basically because a group of people from Bitcoin wanted to have larger blocks because they thought that would help scale the network and have higher throughput. And some people didn't want to increase the block limit. And actually, that's when you had Bitcoin Cash fork off. And the reason why, and so Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin, did not increase their block size. And the reason for that is purely because they are concerned that if you increase the block size, it means that the blockchain itself grows much faster, and it means that it's less easy to run a full node, okay? And that really comes down to hardware requirements. So that's really the crux of why that fork happened. And it's totally true, right? As the size of a blockchain increases, I was actually syncing my Bitcoin node last night, and it does take a lot of resources, right? If you've got to sync a Bitcoin node or any other blockchain node for a week to get it running, chances are you might not do that, right? And if you need to buy a 10 terabyte hard drive, if it even exists, you're probably not going to do that either, right? So really, decentralization is directly linked to how easy it is to run a node, right? Okay, and that's okay, so this is an interesting graph for anyone who's very involved in Ethereum, which is basically showing you the growth of the Ethereum stake. So basically the size of the blockchain, okay? And Ethereum's been around for about 4 or 5 years, and most people probably agree there's fairly limited adoption of the blockchain. And already we can basically see that the size of the Ethereum blockchain is somewhat spiraling out of control, right? And this is a pretty big issue if you extrapolated this for another 5 years, you're going to find that almost no one can run a full node. So it's a big challenge and it's a pretty big concern. And to be honest with you, you can see that not a lot of people are running full Ethereum nodes anymore, specifically for this reason. Okay, and why is this, right? Why is the Ethereum blockchain so much bigger than the Bitcoin blockchain? Well, obviously, there's a lot more data on the Ethereum blockchain, and there's also no fixed block size for Ethereum, right? And the other fundamental reason is that Ethereum has what we call like a pay once, store forever model, okay? So if you want to launch a smart contract, launch an ERC20 or do whatever you want on your Ethereum blockchain, you're going to pay one time a gas fee that's going to create data, which is stored on the blockchain, and then that data is going to be there forever, okay? And you pay one time, okay? So there's no incentive for you to remove that data. There's no incentive really for you to try and make that as efficient as possible. And really, every single time that happens, it's increasing the operating cost of a full node. Okay? And as I say, if you follow Ethereum development, you'll know, well, you may know about the improvement protocol 103, which is all about this issue specifically. It's all about storage rent. And Ethereum is trying to implement a system to basically do this, where they would be charging ongoing rent for storing data on the Ethereum blockchain in a hope to solve this challenge. But actually, it's extremely complicated to implement on the Ethereum blockchain because of the account-based model system. So if anyone's familiar with Ethereum being based on the account model versus the UTXO model of Bitcoin, then you understand that it's a pretty hard thing to implement when you have basically accounts that own contracts, and contracts have dependencies on other contracts, and also contracts can have multiple people involved in them. So who pays the rent, right? And what if someone pays the rent on one contract and the dependent contract isn't paid rent on? So you have a lot of problems that aren't basically solved yet.
It's okay here. So
yeah, I think it's okay.
Commentate the ants fighting on the screen.
Yeah, it's the one on the top too. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's the state flow issue. And then the final one I was going to talk about is the starving layer 1 and miner incentivization. So this is actually not so related to multi-asset platforms, and this is a general issue that some people are starting to talk about a little bit. It's a pretty controversial to discuss as well. But I haven't really talked much about Nervos and what we're doing, but we have a very fundamental design principle, which is that the way to scale a blockchain network is via layer 2 scaling. So very similar how Bitcoin is trying to scale via layer 2 solutions like Lightning Network. That's exactly how the approach that we're taking to scale our network. So we're building this layer 1 proof of work, layer 1 blockchain protocol, which is very much focused on security, decentralization, and all those kind of properties which we think is vital to all these applications. And in terms of scaling, that's all done on layer 2 solutions. And it's built specifically, the layer 1 is built specifically to facilitate layer 2 solutions. I won't go too deep into the tech on that, but the point that I wanted to make is that when you design a system like this, so similar to what Bitcoin is doing, you actually have a challenge because, of course, if we go back to talking about incentivization of the security, okay, basically miners are getting paid in two ways. They're getting paid in the block rewards and they're getting paid in the transaction sheets, okay? So if your strategy is to scale on layer 2, perhaps you're going to find that a lot of the transactions ultimately come off layer 1, right? And they're all happening on layer 2. And of course, block rewards are halved every 4 years on Bitcoin as well as Nervos. So ultimately, you're going to get to the point where there's no block rewards, and the only incentivization for these miners is via fees. Okay, and that's of course what Satoshi Nakamoto's plan was. That by the time the network had essentially been bootstrapped with the block rewards, there would be enough transactions happening on the network to secure the network. So really, the challenge here is that if you start to move all the transactions off to layer 2, and the block rewards are being reduced,
then ultimately what's left to incentivize the miners, okay? So you actually have a bit of a challenge there, and not too many people are talking about it yet, because of course it's a very long way away, but there's been just a tiny hint of people discussing, does the hard cap of Bitcoin being 21 million tokens make sense, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, so we can see here that if we scale on layer 2, it removes transactions from the layer 1, and then that means it's going to remove layer 1 fees and also demand potentially for layer 1 tokens, depending on the solution you use for layer 2. And that's going to basically lead to lower layer 1 security, okay, which of course is fundamental to the sustainability of the network. Okay, so now I'm just going to talk very quickly, I don't have too much time, but very quickly about some of the ways that the CKB are addressing these challenges and our strategies for solving these issues. So we talked a little bit about the heavy asset problem, okay, and how the token must capture the value. So the way that Nervos achieves this is with the CK BY token, okay? And the CK BY token is the native token of the Nervos network. And really what the token does is it grants you allocation to store data on the network. So if you have 1,000 CKB bytes, which is the name of the token, it entitles you to store 1,000 bytes of data on the network, okay? And what it means is if you want to launch other tokens, if you want to store data on that network, you are required to hold and own those CKB bytes to be able to store that data, okay? So as the demand increases for network storage, it will increase the demand for the token, which in turn will increase the rewards paid to the miners, okay? So there's a direct link between creation of value on the network itself, and it's directly linked to the CKB byte token, because you need to have that token in order to be able to create data on the network. And then we talk a little bit about state float and decentralization. So the way that Nervos deals with this is through a secondary inflation. Okay, so we have a block reward very similar to how Bitcoin is, charged every 4 years, but we also have a secondary inflation on the networks. And really that secondary inflation is specifically for solving this issue. Okay, so if you want to store data on the blockchain, okay, as I said, you require to hold the CKB byte tokens, okay? And if you hold the CKB byte tokens and you're locking them up with data, what happens is when the network is issuing new tokens, you're essentially being deflated, right? Your percentage share of total tokens is being deflated, okay? And really that's like an indirect fee for storing data on the network, okay? And that's really how we incentivize people to remove data when they're not using it, right? If you don't need to be locking up your tokens to store the data, then you should unlock them, which is going to free up this space, okay? Now, people may think, well, it's not a good idea to buy the tokens if there's going to be inflation on the network, because of course everyone wants a hard currency just like Bitcoin. Well, the way we solve this is with what's called the Nervos DAO, okay? So if you're not using your tokens for storage of data, and really you're just holding them as a store of value, then what you can do is you can deposit them into the Nervos DAO. And the Nervos DAO receives equal inflation, okay, based on the tokens you have. So if you lock your tokens up in the Nervos DAO, you will always, if you own 1% of all tokens and you put it in the Nervos DAO, you will always own 1% of all the tokens, because you will receive the inflation that's paid for the data that's stored on the network. If that makes sense. Okay, and then the starting layer 2 of miner incentivization. So really, I've already kind of covered how we dealt with that. Okay, because the reality is that the more people are storing data on the network, okay, the more inflation is going to be paid, which isn't going to the Nervos DAO, and that inflation is directly paid to these miners. Okay, so the more data is stored on the network, the more inflation is going to be paid directly to those miners, and therefore you're incentivizing the security of the network. Okay, that basically just talked to this already. But basically this is talking about the secondary issuance and the targeted inflation. So instead of using the pay once, occupy forever model, there's an ongoing cost structure through the targeted inflation, as I just kind of talked through. And of course the monetary policy bans the expansion of state storage. Okay, because of the token issuance, you're only basically allowing a certain amount of data to be stored, okay, which is equal to the current circulating supply, right? The CK Byte token allows you to store data on chain, and it provides this market price for state storage. Okay, so as the demand for storing data on the network increases, that's going to drive demand for the token. Okay, so you're going to have this basically a pricing for state storage. The token basically represents, the demand for storing state, and it's pricing the data storage. And it also provides these incentives for users to remove state, of course, which is fundamental to making sure we don't have this pay once, store forever model. And as I say, the Bitcoin, the basic is just like Bitcoin. Okay, I also talked about this already. The network needs to continuously incentivize the miners, okay, and that's done via the secondary issuance, which is when there's data stored, that secondary issuance will be paid to the miners and not to the people storing the data themselves. And I also talked about the Nervos DAO. Okay, so that's just kind of like how we're dealing with a few of those challenges we see in current blockchains. I'll just talk very, very quickly about a few of the great things, because that's just a few of the things we're doing in CKB. We use Nakamoto's consensus algorithm, or a modified version of it. In many ways, our layer 1 is quite similar to Bitcoin. With just a few of those kind of different changes. We do have multi-asset functionality, which is what we think is somewhat missing on Bitcoin, and we do have fairly low-level smart contract capabilities on the layer 1. It has quite an innovative crypto economics, which is kind of what I've been focusing on this talk, right? So, talking a little bit about that. And the key thing here is we're aligning all the network participants. I didn't talk about it, but there's another kind of challenge that you see in certain networks, which is around alignment of network participants, right? And if you think about the idea of who on the Bitcoin network, for example, wants high security, right? Is it the guys who are holding their tokens on the Bitcoin network for years, or is it the guys who are, receiving them and selling them for US dollar and transferring them around like within a few hours, okay? Well, the reality is that the long-term holders are the ones who want the security, right? But who's paying for the security? It's the short-term people who are paying for the transaction costs, okay? So there's also a misalignment between the users of the network there, and who's really paying for the security of the network. And we go towards solving that challenge as well. We also have a low-level virtual machine, which has a variety of programming support. We have Ethereum VMs coming out, so you can build directly on top from Ethereum contracts. I talked a little bit about the account model of Ethereum and the UTXO model of Bitcoin. So if there's any guys who have a good understanding of that, we use something very, very similar to the UTX model, but it's just slightly changed, and we call it the cell model. And the real, the very interesting thing about the cell model is the cryptographic primitives or this functionality that can be put into cells, okay? So you can actually specify hashing algorithms, locking scripts, a variety of different kind of crypto primitives can be stored in these cells, and then they can basically be referenced in context. So it's super, super flexible, and there's a lot of stuff that can be done, but I'm not going to go into the cell model because that's probably another 30-minute talk there. But that's just a few of the key points. And here's just a little bit of a summary of what we're trying to achieve with Nervos. So they store of value and store of asset platform primarily, okay, with the CKB layer 1. Aligning incentives of all network participants. So we think that is very much key to the sustainability of the network. Sustainability, of course, and then value capture, being able to make sure that that whole value that's created on the network is represented through the CK Byte token itself. So if you guys want to learn more about that, you can check out our website and our blog on Medium. There's a lot of articles from our co-founders and lead developers talking about the cell model and all of these different types of topics that I've just touched on in this presentation. Okay, thanks everyone.
Cool. Thanks very much, Ben. Yeah, really interesting stuff there. I particularly like the focus on the layer 2 solutions. That's what we're using at Mosendo to enable our fast and free payments. So we love some layer 2, which is great. So next up is my good friend Rossco Paddison. He's the CEO and co-founder at Mosendo. In 2017, early 2018, Rossco took a tour around Australia running a series of events like these, but bigger. He spoke to 7,500 average mums and dads and taught them how to use cryptocurrency for the first time. So he got them to bring their laptops, he got them to download their first wallet, and we sent them their first cryptocurrency at those events around Australia. And what that did is really highlighted all the user challenges that come with getting into crypto. The difference between a public key and a private key to someone who's learning about this for the first time is incredibly confusing. So Rossco was able to learn about all those challenges, and that's where the birth of Mosendo came from. He's going to talk about getting DeFi to scale. So please welcome my good friend Rossco.
Hey guys, how are we? I'm a little curious to find out a little bit more about you guys in the room, just because I have no sense of you. How many of you are like developers or have some sort of like technical talent in the room? A couple, okay. How many of you are like investors or like traders or just interested in crypto? Another 25%, cool. How many are you here because a friend dragged you here? Okay, cool. So what I wanted to do is just share with you some of the things I noticed by spending time with a lot of users. I've shown thousands and thousands and thousands of people how to use cryptocurrency for the very first time, like standing there with them, showing them how to do it. So I learned a lot of critical things that I think are important. And if I had to do a 30-second version of my talk, this would be it. Are you ready? It's like the last mile to getting DeFi to scale is the user experience. The thing that's most important is that we make it easy for people to use, because then it'll grab adoption naturally. So that's the thing that I'm really passionate about. So, the clicker. I've got to point it a particular way. 7 and 1 foot. Okay. All right, cool. Great. So the guys touched on like why do we need why do we need DeFi already? But there's a couple other reasons I just want to touch on. I was speaking recently to a future customer of Mosendo's in Venezuela, and he was telling me about the way they get money right now is they get money sent to their family or friends in Colombia. They drive across the border to pick up the money, but they can't bring the money back into Venezuela because of hyperinflation. You see this pile of money here? This is how much it costs for one of these. So instead of using this, they could just use this. So my point is that we were speaking to him recently, so he had to drive across the border, he buys gold, drives gold back into Venezuela, sells the gold, and then quickly goes and buys his groceries before the money price changes too quickly. So there's people who have things like hyperinflation, or there's also people who have like capital controls. Women who live in like the Middle East still cannot open a bank account without their father or their husband's permission in a lot of countries. That's not okay. So they can't access like basic banking and financial services. Or there's 1.1 billion people on the planet who have no government ID, which means they cannot open a bank account. So that's why DeFi is important to me, is so that everyone can have access to basic financial access. Just give people the right to be able to do those things. So when will everyone use it? Like, what is it going to take to make that happen? And I've kind of boiled down what I see as the main user experience challenges that are holding us back right now, and I'll go through those now. So these are the 5 biggest problems that I see with every single user that I've seen. It's really challenging for them to get over this. So the first one is that, like if I'm going to get an Ethereum transaction to actually confirm, and I'm like sending it to someone on the other side, I've got like roughly 30 confirmations to wait for, and it's going to take about 7.5 minutes. Now, if you're at the checkout in Vinmart and you pay for your groceries, and it's going to take 7.5 minutes, can you imagine how long the line will be? It'll be going out the door. It'll be too far. So this is not good for payments. This doesn't make sense. The other thing is you have the cost of gas. So I might be buying a banh mi, and I'm trying to pay with like Ethereum, and I could have got 2 banh mi's for the same price by the time I pay for the gas. So this also doesn't work for like smaller transactions. And when we think about the underbanked, that might be all of their savings this week. right? So it's not to be undermined. So this is a solution. There's things that right now, like people like Nervos and all sorts of people are working on solutions. But what we're seeing is some really cool stake channel technology, some side chains that enable us to do things fast and free and instant. So we stand at the checkout, we send money, and it's done. It's like it's lightning fast. It's very similar to Lightning technology, except it's called stake channels, and it's quite different fundamentally. But there's the infrastructure, the architecture is now here where we can do things instantly, not 7.5 minutes. And also we can do things with smart, like we can run with what's called smart contract-based accounts. We can do things like meta transactions. You don't really need to know what these words mean, but ultimately it means for the end user that they can not have to pay like the gas. They don't have to pay for the gas, and they don't have to wait for the transaction times to confirm. So the user just pulls out their wallet and they pay it, and it's done. And they don't have to experience all of the blockchain problems that are happening in the background. So this is problem number 3. When you download your first crypto wallet, you get this thing that says, you get 12 words in front of you. You usually don't have a string of these words like this, but you just have these words, and this is how you secure your wallet. If you show your grandmother this, what will she say back to you? She'll be like, Troy, oi, what is this? She'll be like, what even is this? It's just confusing. It's not useful for a user. So there are ways now, especially with, this is very much what I've seen on the edge when I've been in San Francisco and New York recently. Teams are working on things called incremental decentralization, where they use a non-custodial way to do account recovery. So what this means for an end user is they can sign up for their wallet and they can just put in their name and email and then press next. And this is what everyone's used to doing when they sign up for a website. They go name, email, next, right? So what this means is that people have the ability to have someone else, and for the couple of nerds in the room, it uses smart contract-based accounts, and the email recovery process means that someone submits a recovery request, and that non-custodial account guardian can submit a new private key to control the smart contract, and has 3 days to be rejected on the device. So if someone tries to maliciously take it, and you have your phone or one of the other devices on, you can reject it. So you have the ability to create a way to recover your account, whereas before you didn't. If you lost these words, then it was all over. It was done. Your money was gone. So this is super cool. This is one of the things we're going to be doing inside of Mosendo, hopefully by as soon as the end of the year. We've got it working in a centralized version. We're just trying to figure out the pieces to make it decentralized. Problem number 4. If you go to, if you earn, say, I don't know, say you earn 20 million dong per month, and this is your wage, and you save it in Bitcoin, and you want to keep it in Bitcoin, the problem is you can't plan for spending, because the price goes up and down too fast. So maybe you get your monthly check, it's worth 20 million, and then tomorrow it's worth 16 million, and then you're just sad. But what can you do, right? So fortunately, we've had in the last 12 months, we've seen some great stablecoin projects come out, and my favorite is DAI, because it's truly decentralized and gives us a lot more leverage. How many of you have heard of DAI? About 30-40%, cool. Yeah, do you like it? Does anyone dislike it? Out. No. All right. So DAI is an awesome. One DAI equals $1 US. So basically, it's stable and it tracks the US dollar. So you can rely that it's not going to drop 20 or 30%. It's not going to go wild swings, but it's going to have some level of stability. And this is problem number 5. This to me is probably the biggest problem. Right now, if I want to send any one of you some cryptocurrency, I've got to ask you for your public key. Now, if I want to transact with you and I'm in this environment, I can go like this. I can go I've got 500,000, right? If I want to give it to you, here you go, it's for you. Now, did I have to ask her for any address? Did I have to ask her for any details? No, you just give it. And who owns that note now? Because it's in her hand, right? So the thing is we need to be able to, and that is for you. Give it. Buy yourself a nice drink. Off. Yes. So what is the future of this? What we're doing is we're making it so you can just send it in a link. So a link actually becomes money. So whoever clicks this first, like a note, owns it, right? So the ability to send a link to someone, and I don't have to, I could have had dinner with you, we're Facebook friends, you bought dinner, I go home, I want to send you half the money for dinner, I just send you a link. I don't have to ask you, can you read me this out over the phone? 1, J, Q, W, so this to me is the most important innovation is that we make money, the true vision of crypto was to make it electronic cash, to make it send easy and back and forth. So I think this allows people, when we go through, let's just quickly recap these. When we go through and we solve these problems, when we make it so that transactions don't take long, it doesn't cost money for transactions that are ridiculous, it's not too incomprehensible to start, you can just do email recovery, and you have a stable cryptocurrency that you can send to anyone without having to know their details, all of a sudden you've got something that can go like wildfire. And what happens here too is that, when you think about the network effects of this, your customers are now your marketers because they're just sending money to their friends. So it makes it happen faster. And this is what we need for adoption. We need things where the action is the marketing. So when will everyone come? Why is that so much longer in English? So much longer in English. So in all technology, there's this thing called the Gartner hype cycle. In the late 1990s, everyone had huge expectations on technology. They thought that computers were going to change the world, which they were. They just had their timing wrong, right? They thought that the internet, all these internet companies were going to go nuts. And the expectations were that we'd be flying around in jets and cars by next month. The expectations are very high and the technology is not quite ready yet. So what happens after that in the Gartner hype cycle is we go up and all these early adopters get in and they have high expectations and they get burnt because they try and run too fast too soon. And then what happens is we get the negative press, the market pulls back, and we come down in here, what is called the trough of disillusionment. Now, my co-founder Tom says that this is his happy place. Because the trough of disillusionment is when everyone else has given up. And it's actually the best time, because the technology is now actually ready. It's ready for scale, when it wasn't 12 months ago. We didn't have the ability to be fast, free, instant, and be able to cross borders and do all those sorts of beautiful things that it can now do in a very sexy and easy way. It couldn't before. So it's an exciting time to be in the industry. And it's exciting that we went through this too, because it shook out a lot of the people who were here just to make money off their friends. That was kind of gross. So I'm glad that's over. And the real players are left. So the demand is way bigger than crypto though. So what I mean by this is that people are just still looking for everyday banking services. People, I talk to people all the time who just want to send money home or go on a vacation and they want to be able to use their card and their card stops working, or PayPal locks up their money, or people have everyday banking problems all the time in all sorts of different ways. So the demand is way bigger than crypto. The DeFi is way bigger than the crypto community. It's everybody who wants to be able to access fair and equal financial services. That's how big DeFi is. It's everyone who wants to be able to, make money and do a service or build a business or be an employee who just gets paid in a way that works better for them, or whatever it might be. But it's for humans. So it's way bigger than crypto, and I think the crypto community is inherently quite it's like this little bubble, and everyone likes to talk to their crypto bros in their jargon language, and they don't really take the time to make it for the people and for other customers, and I think that's important. So yeah, I mean, this is just some we've been having people like beating down a door saying when Mosendo, when Mosendo. We have people like this guy here. He said that he like definitely wanted to try the app, and he's like he said that he's willing to fly to Berlin to be at the event where the app happens for the first time. He said this is going to be the most expensive app that he ever downloaded. But people are like literally wanting this right now. We had a guy, I don't actually have the tweet up here, I should have it, but the Bank of Mexico went down the other day, and he tweeted Bank of Mexico, he's like, when are you guys getting Mosendo? So it's kind of funny, it's cool, and you know, when people are like, you know, have houses in, or like have money in 4 or 5 different countries and can't move it around, there's all sorts of people asking for it. So I literally, I'm working on Mosendo every day and night, but one of the other things we do is we've built this community, and the community is called DeFi Nations. Have any of you heard of DeFi Nation? Yeah, any of you in the room in DeFi Nation? Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 of you. Yeah, cool. So this is just a Facebook group. It's just where we give like information about all the different sort of DeFi projects. We're actually live streaming into the group here right now, at the back of the room. You can wave to them. So literally we have this group. We have a whole bunch of people in there. Nick Merton from like Data Dash, he's got like 300,000 subscribers on Facebook. All these different founders of all these different crypto projects and DeFi projects. We do interviews and videos in there with them. You can join that group for free. It'll be good to have you in there. And yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, Rossco. Yeah, super exciting what's happening with Mosendo. Come and join the community, join DeFiNation.com. That'll just take you straight to the Facebook group. Some really great conversations about all things DeFi. We're going to have a quick break now, about 15 minutes. There's some refreshments going to come into the room. And in 15 minutes, we'll be back for a panel discussion with Rossco, Ben, and Loi. Thanks, everyone.
I'll be having tea break on time.